Oh, I guess he's
He knew about
65.
that though. But we were planning on going to Monday, but
Did
he can't.
Died in
It's too
September.
much.
Man.
But we're gonna go to
He's
5
been
games
around
together
when they
this
were
year.
in
That's
the
enough.
dumpers.
Well, yeah.
You still got
pretty
both
much all
sets of
us have
tickets,
been
right?
around that
Right,
long.
right.
Yep.
So who's been using the other four? Who's gonna?
So my wife and daughter were sitting upstairs.
All with friends?
No, just the two of them, and then I sold the other two.
Oh, okay.
So I've been trying to sell some. Like I just sold the 4 Monday night, and I'm going to the Monday night downstairs thing. So as long as I can get more than what I paid for them, and I can on all of them so far. So.
Can we have our awkward silent moment?
It's just about there.
Okay.
We're in the last minute of mandatory awkward silence.
Very awkward silence.
Struggle. So,
It's not as much as a struggle. I mean, we really do have made in America. When you really think
All right. Good evening, everybody.
challenge.
The time is 6:30 p.m. The date is September 11th, 2024. And I am calling this meeting of the Macomb Township Board to order. Today is September 11th, and 23 years ago, 3,000 Americans lost their lives. And for that, I would like us all to take a moment of silence before we go any further. Thank you. In the wake of that tragedy, America came together like nothing I had ever experienced
Amen.
since or had ever seen, and I have not seen that sense of patriotic loyalty since then. With the presidential election season upon us, I hope we can all remember what it was like to come together when we needed to. And with that in mind, let's say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, the clerk duties will be undertaken by Deputy Clerk Roger Cardamom. Mr. Cardamom, we call the roll.
Yes, sir. Trustee Cusimano?
Here.
Trustee Lucido?
Here.
Trustee Oliver?
Here.
Trustee Nevers?
Present.
Treasurer Drollet?
Here.
Supervisor Viviano?
Here. Clerk Posey is absent. Mr. Cardamom, are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, there is one correction to item number 8. The name of the vendor currently reads Midwest Recreation. That should be changed to Mid-States Recreation. That is all.
Sure, I move to approve the agenda with the correction.
Support.
Is there any discussion? Motion by Treasurer Drollet, supported by Trustee Nevers, to approve the agenda as corrected. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to approve the bills?
So move.
Support.
Is there any questions or discussions on the bill run? Hearing none. Motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Cusimano, to approve the bills. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This will take us to item 4, approval of the previous meeting's minutes from August 28th and the closed session meeting minutes from August 28th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Is there any question or discussion on the previous meeting's minutes? Excuse me. Hearing none. Motion by Trustee Lucido, supported by Treasurer Gillette, to approve the previous meeting's minutes and the closed session's minutes from August 28th. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This will take us to public comment. This is our first public comment of the evening. This is for agenda items only. Anyone who wishes to make a public comment at this time may use the microphone on the right-hand side of the room. I don't see anyone making a motion to get to the microphone, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move the consent agenda in its entirety.
Support.
Is there any questions or discussion on any of the consent items? Hearing none, motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Nevers, to approve the consent agenda. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This will take us to item 8. This is a request to approve the purchase of playground equipment for Waldenburg Park from Mid-States Recreation in the amount of $726,801.
So move.
Support.
Mr. DeCaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, board members. The Parks and Recreation Department is requesting permission to purchase new playground equipment to replace the existing playground equipment at Waldenburg Park. It's our goal to make this a boundless playground. To do this, 70% of the play activities must be accessible to serve children with physical disabilities. That is the case with this plan that you have before you. We're recommending we make the purchase from Mid-States Recreation for a cost of $726,801. Mid-States is the company who installed the playground at Pittsburgh Park. We're pleased with the quality of their equipment. They are a Sourcewell provider. I've included the plans, the quote, and the confirmation of process memo from the purchasing department. This is a budgeted item, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. DeCaro. Any questions or discussion?
This one.
Yes.
When do you think they'd start on this project?
We're looking, if we're lucky, the end of the year, but probably spring, I would think would be more realistic.
Okay. They're gonna remove all our old stuff,
Everything that's there.
take it away,
correct.
put the new stuff.
Yeah, and just to let you know, it has to be 70%. We want it obviously to be as inclusive as possible. This will be 84%. So we're real pleased with that.
Good. Thank you.
It also does include a full replacement of the surface to turf.
With that mat.
Yeah, the rubber will be removed and turf will be put in its place.
Good.
Anyone else? Hearing no more questions, motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Lucido, to approve the purchase of playground equipment for Waldenburg Park from Mid-States Recreation, $726,801. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Sal. Item 9 is a request for approval for the Township Supervisor to sign a purchase agreement with DTE in the amount of $247,011.76 and a cost share agreement with the Macomb County Department of Roads for $46,578 for the Township LED street lighting upgrade.
So move.
Support.
Mr. Van Tifflin.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members. As the board is aware, the engineering department secured a grant to replace all of the high-pressure sodium and mercury vapor lights that currently exist in the township as far as our street lights go, and replace them with LEDs. This grant was given to the township through SEMCOG. It's a federal grant. So there are a lot of paperwork that's associated with that. Since we received word that we actually secured the grant, we've been working on all the paperwork that's necessary to actually get the funds available to the township. So what's before you tonight are two agreements that we need to execute. The first one is the agreement between the township and DTE, because all of our streetlights are contracted directly from the township to DTE. And that's the $247,011.76. That's a deposit that we'll have to make to cover the initial cost of the ordering and the start of construction. The second agreement is between the township and the Macomb County Department of Roads. And this is because the funding is actually done through what is typically a road funding program. So the money is with MDOT. MDOT only will contract with the local agency that handles road work, and that's the Macomb County Department of Roads for the township. So in that, their administration fees essentially is what we're paying for here. That's $46,578. We've reviewed both agreements and are recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Van Tiffelen. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Van Tiffelen. Mr. Van Tiffelen, the 247,000 approximately, is that our percentage, that's a requirement to achieve the grant? We have to pay a certain percent?
Yes, yeah, 20% is the match that the grant requires.
Okay.
So
And then-
DTE is kicking in some money. There's a rebate, there's their participation in this, like they do with normal streetlight, programs. But yes, this would be our portion of the grant. The rest of it, as we get invoices from DTE, we'll turn those over to the Macomb County Department of Roads, and they'll get reimbursed through MDOT.
Okay, so I believe the 247 was budgeted, 247,000 as part of the grant, but the 46,000 was not.
The match was not budgeted. So we received the grant partway through the last fiscal year, I believe. And we anticipated that the money would be turned over last year. When we were in the budgeting season, we didn't realize that, we hadn't budgeted for this year, and just so happened that we've gone into a new fiscal year. But I've talked to the CFO, and she indicates to me that we have some money that we can move around that would be able to pick up the cost of this.
So basically the about 300,000 is something that we have to account for that we had not necessarily done when we were doing the budget process.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Question from Mr. Van Tiffelen. Through this whole process, are we gonna gain any street lighting? On
No.
certain areas, there's none of that, just remove and replace?
Correct. This is just to remove and replace the existing lights that are using more energy than what an LED light would use.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have
Yes.
a question. It's my understanding that this is just street light for major thoroughfares and roads, right? Or does it include
It's every-
subdivisions?
Subdivisions, the major roads, everything. And that's why it's high-pressure sodium as well as the mercury vapor lights. Mercury vapor lights tend to be at the intersections. Those are the much older lights.
So it does include, all the subdivisions are gonna be fitted out with LEDs?
All the subdivisions that don't have LEDs currently will receive
Okay.
new. So if you drive around the township, you'll notice that some lights are more yellow
Yeah,
than other lights. So the brighter lights, the whiter lights are the LED lights. So the newer subdivisions already have them. They won't see any changes. But once the process starts, the older subdivisions that have those yellow lights, yellow colored lights, they'll see them replacing those bulbs. And DTE has been replacing, as the high pressure sodium lights go out, they will go in and replace them with LEDs just because they have those on hand, and high pressure sodium lights they don't necessarily have on hand as much.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Van Tiffelen.
It is worth noting that those subdivisions that do have the older lights, once the replacement is done, we'll see a reduction in their SAD that they are paying
Yeah,
for
so
the lights.
yeah, I can add to that. So usually that happens in the fall because it's on the winter taxes. We're past that point and the lights still haven't been replaced. So between now and let's say next August or so, we'll know what the final numbers are from DTE, and we'll bring a resolution to the township board like we did a couple of years ago when we changed the amount that the residents pay as part of their special assessment. And again, those will only be the subdivisions that have the older lights that have seen the change. The newer subdivisions that already have LEDs won't see any change at all.
Correct. Yep.
So
Right.
in this contract, them older subdivisions, they have to get involved with this? They can't say we want out? Or
No,
the
this is to-
contract is they get in when we get in?
Yeah, this is to replace all of the lights. And there would be no reason for them not to because ultimately it's going to save them
That's
money.
better light, and it's gonna save money.
Yeah, the township and the grant are picking up all the cost for replacing all of the lights. They're just going to see the benefit in a lower lamp charge at the end of the year as part of their taxes.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yep.
I just had a question to Mr. Van Tiffelen, if I could. So I'm just trying to get the math right that I'm reading in the packet here. It says it's going to reduce the annual invoices to DTE by about $253,000, and the payback is over 5 years. So is our out-of-pocket more than the 247 plus the 46? Or how is that coming up with the 5 years? That seems like almost within a year and a half we get our money.
Well, I think it's
That
the
includes the
whole.
total amount of the grant.
Yeah.
Oh.
yeah.
Okay.
That's DTE's number.
Okay.
That's the way they're looking at it.
Okay,
So,
I got
yeah.
you. But it's gonna save our residents as a whole.
There really isn't a payback here because the township isn't paying the bill, the residents are paying the bill,
Yeah,
but
but-
we're paying for the
But passing
construction.
it on to the residents is what I'm saying. It's gonna be.
The savings, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'll see a payback immediately as soon as we change it next year, once we're done with all this. Because we're not passing along the roughly $300,000 that it's costing the township to change the lights out. So there really isn't a payback.
Yeah.
per
I
se.
just want to see how that number worked out, because it didn't make sense. But if it's over the entire grant,
Yep.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Hearing none. Motion by Treasurer Dillett, supported by Trustee Oliver, to approve the township to sign a purchase agreement with DTE in the amount of $247.1176 and a cost share agreement with Macomb County Department of Roads for $46,578 for the township-wide LED street lighting upgrade. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This will take us to item 10, a request to award the 2024 Pathway Gap Closure Program in the amount of $489,513.61.
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Van Tiffelen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members. On August 27th, the township received proposals from contractors for the 2024 Pathway Gap Closure Program. We received a total of 5 proposals that day. The review committee of Kevin Ostrowski, our design engineer, our consultant, Crystal Kozak, and myself reviewed the proposals. At this point, we are satisfied with the highest scoring contractor in recommending JSS Macomb to the Township Board for award for this program. And I should note that this also includes the work that is going to be done in front of Old Town Hall across the street, so that we have the sidewalks available when the porch goes in. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Question, if I may?
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Van Tiffelen. Mr. Van Tiffelen, I can't exactly remember what the budget amount was for this year for that particular project. I don't know if Stacy might have that number.
I don't.
Okay.
It was more, but
Yeah.
that included right-of-way acquisition, engineering.
Yeah.
This is for the construction.
Actual construction
Yeah,
itself?
it's not apples to apples necessarily, because there are other things that are included in this, because there's work from this year's program, the last year's program that finished this year, so we're paying those bills, so.
I'll follow
but
up with CFO
yeah,
Smith then later to double check how that's, how,
the additional funds that the board made available in the budget for this year
yeah.
are being used for acquisition, design, those types
Right,
of things.
Right, I
We're
remember we
trying
did
to get
increase
ahead
the
of things.
amount for the pathway project. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank
Hearing none. Motion by Trustee Lucido, supported by Treasurer Gillette, to award the contract for the 2024 Pathway Gap Closure Program to JSS Macomb, $489,513.61. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This will take us to item 11. This is a request authorization for the township supervisor to sign the County of Macomb resolution to support and commit funding towards resurfacing, of Hayes Road from 23 to 25 Mile Road.
So move.
Support.
Mr. Van Tiffelen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, board members. The Macomb County Department of Roads recently submitted a request for federal funding for the resurfacing of Hayes Road between 23 and 25 Mile Road. That federal aid requires a 20% match that is typical. In this case, that would be shared by, half of it would be the Macomb County Department of Roads, and then Shelby and Macomb Townships would share the remaining 10%, so 5% apiece. So as part of the application process for federal funds, they require a letter of support or a resolution from the township board indicating that the township will participate if the funds are made available, and which could be a couple, 3 years from now, depending on where the project falls. So in this case, the Macomb County Department of Roads is estimating that to be right around $180,000 would be the township share. So for $180,000, the township would get basically 2 miles of road resurfaced, so which we think is a pretty good deal. So we've reviewed the agreement, or the resolution, and are recommending approval.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
this will have to
Vantillo.
go before the Shelby Township Board as well, so.
And this isn't the actual cost share yet. This is just a
That's right,
commitment
it's
to
just
participate.
our intent to participate.
Yes. Any other questions or discussion? Yes.
This is just a resurfacing? They're not doing any type of re-engineering of that because of the
No,
additional
no,
traffic?
we have had some discussion with them about the widening of Hayes in that area.
Yeah.
We're not at that point yet. Both, Shelby and Macomb have other things that we're looking into, and the county is supportive of those things. 21 in Heidenreich is one of those things. So probably within hopefully in the next tip cycle, we'll see some action on that. But at this point, the road has gotten to a condition where something needs to happen with it, so.
If they do move that around or something where one gets delayed and they push this up, can they, if they do re-engineer it, can they use whatever money we put towards this, towards that, or how does that work?
Usually, when they widen a road, it's a complete remove and replace of the pavement that's there. Because usually it's concrete versus asphalt, and the requirements are different, and, they put drain tile on either side of the road. So there's a lot of things that go into a larger section of roadway, a lot of storm drainage that goes with it. So more than likely, it's going to be a complete remove and replace.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to follow, if I may. Mr.
Yes.
Chair. So just to clarify, though, we're not putting any actual money down. We're committing, if the project moves forward, that we will put money at that point.
That's right. So the way the funding, the applications work, all the communities in Macomb County have put in applications. Those are currently being reviewed. Matter of fact, the next phase of the application process, those are due at the end of this month. They'll be scored, and it will go to SEMCOG, hopefully sometime in December for some more evaluation. And then sometime next year, we'll find out how much money we have, what projects were funded, and then, they'll decide what years they're going to commit. And then once we hit the point where they need to start design is when we would actually get the agreement from the county.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, motion by Treasurer Lutz, supported by Trustee Oliver, to authorize the supervisor to sign the Macomb County Department of Roads resolution to support and commit funding towards resurfacing of Hayes and from 23 to 25 Mile Road. Mr. Carterman, we call the roll?
Treasurer Drollet,
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Kuzamano,
Yes.
Trustee Lucido,
Yes.
Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Supervisor Viviano.
Yes, that resolution is adopted. Moving on to item 12, request to close township offices during the Christmas, New Year's holiday. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Tabaka.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and board members. Based on previous research by the township, including review of cost savings and availability to the public, the township has closed offices between Christmas and New Year's Day. The treasurer's office has been open one day during this period to collect taxes, and suitable staffing arrangements are made with the fire department. This closure, with the exceptions, has been negotiated with the unions. If approved, the closure of the township offices would be Thursday, December 26th, Friday, December 27th, and Monday, December 30th. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Tabaka. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
Is this covered under the collective bargaining agreements, or in other words, are we obligated to close during that period of time?
Yeah, it's negotiated with MATE and ASME contracts.
So it is a negotiated covenant in the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes.
I think he's asking if we're obligated to do it. I think we're allowed to do it. I don't think it's required.
I don't think, no, it's not required. We're allowed to, and I have to present this 90 days before this date, before Christmas.
Okay, so and traditionally, we've always done it that way, right?
Since
Yeah,
I've
they're-
been here, yeah, going to my 4th year, it's always been the same.
There's a trade-off. There are some required PTO days that staff have to take, and the township also offers some paid time as well.
Yeah, under the Ask Me contract, you have to take 1 PTO day, and under the MAPE, you have to take 2 PTO days.
For this period that the offices are
For these
closed?
3 days, yes.
Yes,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
you're welcome. If there's no one else, motion by trustee Oliver, supported by treasurer Gillette, to close township offices during the Christmas, New Year's holiday. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item 13, this is a request to approve an amendment to the conditional rezoning. This is for the reserves at Macomb. This is on the west side of Gratiot, 1/2 mile north of Hall Road. Permanent parcels 0836-426-004, 003, 0836-426-015, and 0836-276-022. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Support.
Mr. Box.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. As you mentioned, this is along Gratiot Avenue on the west side of Gratiot, between Hall Road and 21 Mile. The Reserves of Macomb is a multifamily development that was proposed through the conditional rezoning process. It was actually approved in 2023. Since then, they've made a few revisions that we felt were large enough to have to go back through the Planning Commission process, so they did just that. Those revisions included adding a maintenance building. They expanded the clubhouse size. They removed a walkway in the center of the development around a pond, and made some changes to their pickleball court. With that, staff has reviewed this. We are in support, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. Motion by treasurer Gillette, supported by trustee Nevers, to approve the conditional rezoning, or the amendment to the conditional rezoning for the reserves at Macomb. These are the parcels 0836-426-004 and 003, 0836-426-015, and 0836-276-022. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This will take us to item 14. Request to approve the conditional rezoning of Macomb Retail Center located on the south side of 25, west side of Romeo Plank. Permanent parcel numbers 0808101-052 and 049. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support. Mr. Box?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. As you mentioned, this is on the south side of 25 Mile, near Romeo Plank. The applicant has a couple properties there that they're looking to conditionally rezone to flex, which does match the master plan. One of the properties already has the dentist office on the property. The other property they're looking to potentially develop as a commercial plaza. By conditionally rezoning it, they have agreed to move the driveway. The existing driveway is kind of almost right into the traffic circle, which is very dangerous. So we were able to convince them to slide that back, and these two developments would share one driveway into their parking areas. With that, staff is in support of this, and this did go to the Planning Commission and was voted unanimously to recommend approval.
Thank you, Mr. Box. Any questions or discussion?
I had one question, and I don't know, I just wondering myself, because I live right by there, is there a reason why there's no exit onto Romeo Plank?
I wasn't here when that was developed, but my guess is the road department and Jim may weigh in, would probably say it's too close to the intersection.
Oh, okay,
The property's not very deep there, so any place you would put a driveway is very close to that intersection.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
It's a question, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Bach. So what type of buildings or what type of businesses or what type of operations would be allowed under this rezoning that would not be allowed under the existing zoning?
So the existing zoning for the undeveloped portion I believe is C1. So what they're proposing is a little commercial plaza, which would essentially offer up to C2 uses. So I think they're proposing possibly a little pizzeria and things of that nature. Maybe a nail salon, that type of thing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing no more questions, motion by trustee Oliver, supported by treasurer Gillette, to approve the conditional rezoning for the Macomb Retail Center. This is permanent parcel IDs 0808101-052 and 049. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item, request to accept grant funding in the amount of $60,000.
So move.
Support.
Mr. Cardamom, give us some background.
Yes, sir. The Macomb Township Clerk's Office applied for and was subsequently granted an award of $60,000 from the Institute for Responsive Government. The grant funding will be used exclusively for the nonpartisan public purpose of planning and operationalizing, secure, efficient, and accessible elections in Macomb Township. The uses that fall within this public purpose include expenditures for the key human, physical, and technological assets the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has identified as necessary to conduct elections. As such, the clerk is seeking authorization to sign the grant agreement to accept this funding in the amount of $60,000 from the Institute for Responsive Government.
Thank you, Mr. Cardamom. Any questions or discussion?
Quick question, if I may, Mr. Chair, through you to Deputy Clerk. So this is not a state or a federal grant. This is a grant from a nonprofit organization?
That's correct, a 501c3 organization registered with the Internal Revenue Service.
Okay. Have we received a grant from the organization in the past?
We have not.
Okay. And was there an application process?
There was, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Hearing none, motion by treasurer Gillette, supported by trustee Nevers, to accept the grant funding in the amount of $60,000 from the clerk's office. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This will take us to item 16. This is a request to approve an ethics board violation complaint policy and procedure. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
So in our ethics ordinance, the board is required to adopt policies and procedures in order for the ethics board to conduct their business. Myself, along with Mr. Tomlinson, reviewed our ethics ordinance, discussed procedures, looked at other procedures at the county, developed the draft, reviewed the draft numerous times, and then we brought it to the ethics committee for their opinion. Ethics committee had some feedback for us. We made some modest revisions, brought it back to them, and ultimately they voted to recommend approval. But ultimately it's the board's responsibility to approve those policies and procedures for the ethics board. A copy of it was included in the board packet, and I would be happy, or Mr. Tomlinson would be happy, to answer any questions any of the board members have. Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, I got
Yes.
a question. On the final page, it says the township supervisor will be responsible for the implementation and enforcement of this policy and procedure. What is the recourse if a complainant is dissatisfied with action on his or her complaint? Is it appealed to the supervisor, or can the complainant ultimately appeal to this board?
Mr. Tomlinson?
I don't think there's a provision in the ordinance for appeal process. So if the ethics board finds no cause for complaint, the matter is terminated at that stage.
So the complainant can always come to any board meeting and raise his concern, and the board could ask for a review. It's always up to the board.
Of course it could.
I don't know if that answers your question or not, Mr.
Yeah,
Cuspino.
it does. It kind of puts things in perspective. Thank you. My concern was not to just disparage the current board or the supervisor, but the history has been with these ethics complaints that people have alleged a politicalization and weaponization of the process. So I wanted to make sure that my understanding that there is recourse to the full board is in fact the policy of the township.
So someone can always come to a meeting and discuss an open session any of their concerns. The procedures and the policies that were drafted were specifically for how to handle, account for, record, and ultimately process the complaint itself.
Yeah, and it's good work. It's well done and well drafted. That was the only question or comment that I had.
Thank you, Trustee
Thank you,
Guzmano.
Mr. Chairman.
I got a quick question.
Sure.
How many years has the ethics board been in place?
I think we seated it within the first couple of months of this existing term, so 3.5 years.
Okay. Have we ever had a formal complaint?
No formal complaints.
Good.
Mr. Chair, if I have a question. Yes. It's a little hypothetical, but I guess through you to Mr. Tomlinson, is there an envisionable circumstance where an ethics violation does not also equal in some way a legal violation? I know, is there some sort of an ethics violation that somebody couldn't or shouldn't go to a prosecutor regarding?
There could be. For instance, you have certain restrictions on gifts and the amount that you can receive in gifts. Is that a criminal violation to receive, extra $20 in a gift? No, it's not, unless there's some kind of quid pro quo that's being alleged in that circumstance. But just on its face, it would not arise to criminal activity.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
there are provisions obviously in there that if anything even sniffs of criminality, that it's forwarded to the proper authorities.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Anyone else? No more questions? We have I gotta lost my spot. Motion by Trustee Lucido, supported by Treasurer Gillette, to approve the Ethics Board violation complaint and procedure policy. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next item is a request to approve the one-year contract extension with the agreement with Pilot Property Group to provide real estate broker services. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
As this board recalls, after we attempted to sell a couple of parcels of unused residential property through our, through a bidding process, we realized we weren't having a lot of success in soliciting bids. We made the decision to engage a broker so that we could get more successful, a better quality of people interested in any of our surplus properties. We ultimately settled with Pilot Property Group. There is no out-of-pocket expense unless we engage them to either buy or sell a parcel of property. This agreement will just simply have them on call in case that decision is made by this board. So with that, I will take any other questions.
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just, I recall during the process of the bidding on this particular contract that the prices or so-called the charges associated with the selling and buying a property between the various bidders were pretty much all the same. The decision came down to the the experience of the brokerage firms. That was primarily, driving the decision. Is there any change in the cost structure of any sort? Or just are we extending the existing cost structure?
It's all the same. I mean, I know there's been some movement in the residential property world regarding charge, what they can charge, but I don't think it's going to affect anything that we have with Pilot.
So
They would present us with each individual sale, they present us with an agreement that we have to sign that includes whatever rate they're going to charge.
is that the status with our existing
Yes.
contract with them?
Mhm.
So it's we're just extending without any other substantial change.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion by excuse me, having a tough time. Motion by trustee Oliver, supported by treasurer Dillette, to approve the one-year contract extension with Pilot Property Group Real Estate Broker Services. Members, please vote. The motion passes unanimously. This will take us to our last item. The request to amend the contract for legal services with Loya and Associates and York, Dolan, and Tomlinson, PC. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
So our original contract with our attorneys, who are both here tonight, this does not include labor. This includes all the other services that we rely on them for. Originally had a 1 year and 2 year renewals. After the first year, we did renew. We got into the second year. We haven't taken any action since. Their initial contract did allow them to open up a request for a review of their rates and their retainer. If CPI were to increase past 6 in any given year, that happened. Unfortunately, we signed with them just before that spiked, so about 6 months later, that did pass. They did wait a gracious 3 years before they actually came back to discuss a contract renewal and a rate increase. What's presented to you is an increase effectively of a $2,000 increase monthly for Aloya and Associates, and a $3,000 a month increase for York, Dolan, and Tomlinson. In addition, the hourly fees, which typically is only going to be applied for litigation services and very few others, increased from $150 to $175 per hour. We did do some internal analysis. We reviewed the last 15 months of legal bills from both attorneys. Their average hourly rate with this increase would have projected out to be in the less than $180 per hour for both. It was in the $170 some range. I also reached out to Clinton Township, who had been through a recent review of legal services and had gotten some quotes. Their services they were getting ranged from 170 to over 200. So I felt the rate increase was roughly market rate and reasonable. And then I did an internal review of all the staff that work with them on a regular basis. I forwarded those reviews to the board. I felt that overall the reviews are very good in that we have gotten great value with the services that we've had from our two attorneys. I can tell you we have gotten an immense amount of work done in the past 3.5 years, things that had been backlogged and on the back burner for long before we got here are finally getting done, and I've been personally very pleased and grateful for their service. And with that, I will take any questions.
Just a quick question, if I may.
Sure.
I know that the initial contract did call for a review of the rates if the inflation or CPI exceeded the 6% threshold. And I recall that you and I met to discuss what the CPI has been over the period since the contract has been signed, and I believe this corresponds almost identically with the rate of inflation since that. Is that correct?
That is correct. Their rate increase request was within a few fractional points of the CPI increase.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Just
Mr.
one thing,
Chairman.
if I could.
Oh,
Sure.
go on.
First of all, I think our attorneys do a phenomenal job for the township. They're an asset to the township. Just anecdotally, I know my profession, our policy renewals and insurance, I mean, are anywhere between 15 and 20% over the last 2 years. So I don't feel that this increase, I mean, in a perfect world, nobody wants an increase. I don't feel it's out of the question. I mean, it kind of follows suit with, at least in my industry and other industries that I'm seeing. So I just wanted to mention that to the residents.
Thank you for that comment, Mr. Lucido. Mr. Cusmano?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I had some questions before the meeting started, and we had a discussion. As I understand it, what is the new term of this contract for legal services with the two firms? Is it,
The new term is effectively open-ended, but
Okay.
it is terminable at will by the township.
all right, my concern is that the basis for straying from the purchasing policy of competitive bids is, as I understand it, is because we're satisfied with the legal services, and I will say great things about the two firms involved. I have no issues whatsoever regarding their services. However, that has nothing to do with what my job is here as a trustee, is to make sure that we make best value to the township residents. I do recall Kirk and Huth being the lowest qualified bidder, and I believe they were at 140 when this contract was initially executed 4 years ago. And so I guess my question is, under what circumstance will this be reviewed again under a competitive bidding process? If it is intended to be reviewed at all?
Well, I think we constantly review the services that we receive. We can, as I discussed with you before the meeting, have a formal review annually of services. If anyone requests to go out for bid, we can certainly do that, and the contract's terminable at will. It certainly would make sense if our council were to come in for another rate increase, that was discussed, and if at the time, rather than accept another rate increase, go out for bid, would make sense. Certainly, we're not. This contract doesn't behold us to anything. Personally, I think the value we've received from them has been very high. And I base that not just on the rate, but on the volume of work that I know has been getting done.
And the extension is for 2 years? Or is it?
It's open-ended.
Open-ended.
And I guess my understanding from our purchasing specialist, who's not here, but maybe Stacy, you could weigh in. I don't think this deviates from the purchasing policy because professional services is a carved-out exception already in the policy. Okay.
So it'll never be set for review?
It doesn't have to be, but we can at any time.
And we had discussion that this would probably come up during the budget discussions in the board, right?
I think it's perfectly reasonable to have, at minimum, an annual discussion on our legal services.
And of course, if they wanted to charge less, then they're free to do that.
We would certainly accept a rebate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's
You're
all I
welcome.
have.
You're welcome, Trustee
And
Guzmán.
again, I have no issues regarding the professionalism and the work and services provided.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, please, this may require a separate provision because we're voting on a contract issue, but I would have no problem if we added to our annual budget process a time that we review professional services contracts as well during that budget review process. I realize that wouldn't be germane to this specific agenda item because it's a vote on the contract, but I would like us to consider that as we move forward.
We certainly can. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, one last comment. Well, no, I withdraw it. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? No more questions? Motion by Treasurer Gillette, supported by Trustee Nevers. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong item. folded my paper. I had it too soon. Motion by trustee Lucido, supported by trustee Oliver, to adopt the amendment to the contract for legal services with Aloy and Associates and York, Dolan, and Tomlinson. Members, please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Board. Thank you.
And with that, this takes us to our second public comment of the evening. This is for non-agenda items. If anyone has anything they would like to address to this board, they may use the microphone on the right-hand side of the room. I don't see anyone making a move, so we're going to move on to board comments. Trustee Lucido.
Just in addition to the initial comments about September 11th, just want to shout out to the first responders, fire department, police department, the everyday heroes. You know, we appreciate you and we thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Lucido. Trustee Nevers.
Yes, I too understand how important our firefighters are and our police. And we want them all to be safe. And today is a special day to remember them. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Nevers. Trustee Oliver.
Same thing, basically. Them were very nice words you said at the beginning of the meeting, and meant a lot if you think about them. You know, and to our first responders. I mean, that could happen anywhere. So, that being said, that's done. And the other thing I want to make a comment on: one, thank Ben and Tim. They've done a great job. I think they've kept us out of a lot of trouble. So thank you. Hope it continues. And the other thing is, last Sunday, I was at the Richmond Good Old Day Parade. And we have 4 school districts in our township.
They do?
And 3 of them were represented in the band. New Haven was there, Chip Valley was there, and Utica was there.
Great.
It was kind of nice to see that. So
Very nice.
that's it.
Thank you, Trustee Oliver. Trustee Guzmano.
No comments tonight.
Thank you, Trustee Guzmano. Treasurer Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to extend their appreciation for the extension of the contract for the work provided by our legal services, who do a fantastic job for the community. So thank you. I also like to note that to the residents of the township that this Monday, September 16th, is the last day that you can pay your summer property taxes without penalty. That's the tax bill that primarily goes to fund school and education. It's not township taxes, but they're paid here at the township. That can be paid online. They can be paid by coming into our town hall during office hours and paying at the treasurer's office. They can also be paid in Dropbox, which we've got 2 located on the west side of the township hall. They must be received by Monday the 16th. So I'd advise any residents that don't have their those taxes paid by their escrow account to either pay them online or come to Township Hall or drop them in the box rather than rely on the Postal Service at this point, because, you know, it's a little bit of a gamble whether or not it arrives on the 16th. We don't like to assess penalties. We have to have a deadline. So with that, just make sure residents are aware this Monday, the 16th, if they're not paid by escrow, look for a way to get them here to the Township Hall.
Thank you, Treasurer Grinch. I want to congratulate firefighter Joe Warren, who this past Sunday completed his Walk for the Red, which is a 140-mile walk across the entire state. He does it in 4 days. And this year, Joe and his colleagues raised money for more than 70 families of firefighters who have been stricken by cancer. So I want to thank Joe for the wonderful example he sets and all the work he does for his fellow firefighters and their families. And I just want to point out that this image behind me was taken this morning by our very own Grace Lovins. Fire Chief Phillips and I, and along with the fire department, were invited to participate in St. Peter's Patriot Walk that took place starting from Lutheran North. And this image is the Sheriff's Department mounted unit underneath our ladder truck that is holding one of our big flags. And it was a nice foggy morning, and it made for a very dramatic photo, so I just thought it'd be appropriate for tonight. She took a really nice photo, so. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Trustee Kuzma makes the motion to adjourn.
Support.
Discussion?
Any discussion? Hearing none, motion by trustee Cusumano, supported by trustee Lucido to adjourn the meeting. Members, please vote.
And we adjourned at what time exactly?
Motion passes unanimously. This meeting is adjourned.
You beat me by 1 minute.